Hello and welcome to CEO Insights, the program that interviews top managers here in Vietnam. I'm your host and my name is Leon Shears. Today I'm delighted to say that I've got a friend and colleague, Mr. Bruce Flanagan, and he's joining us to discuss himself and his business here in Vietnam. So the inevitable first question is, why Vietnam?
Why Vietnam? I love Vietnam. When I was a kid, I would watch the news about the war and cry. I don't know why, but from as young as I can remember, I had an interest in Vietnam. Then I worked as a cabinet maker, an apprenticeship. Wasn't my choice, but I did it. And anyway, in that space, there was a lot of labourers working there were Vietnamese, and I used to go and have lunch with them rather than they literally had two lunchrooms because the Australians didn't like the food, the smell of the food the Vietnamese cooked. So I used to go and have lunch with them. It was a really strange thing that I've always seemed to have a love and a like and a desire for Vietnam and Vietnamese people. So I had an opportunity come up to be the country manager for Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos for an international NGO, and that's what brought me here, and worked for them for over 10 years and just loved the place. I mean, my love grew. Food, people, the opportunity. I personally find Vietnamese hardworking and creative and just passionate, even more so than others in the region. And yeah, I guess that's why Vietnam.
And how long ago was that when you first came?
1991. I visited Vietnam 1989 on a trip, and then moved to Hanoi in 1991. So been here a little while.
And you now have family here?
Yes, married with two boys, adopted two boys here, not that long ago, about 3 years ago, and that's been both a challenge and total blessing.
Right. And you came to start here in an NGO. What type of NGO and how did that work out?
So at first we did relief work because there was a lot of poverty in those days, so we ran some handicap centres and orphanages and relief from the storms and things like that. We developed into microeconomic development business, so starting pig farms, fish farms, and then plastics factories, so lending out money and then getting it back in to help them develop their lives in the poorer parts of Vietnam.
So that must have been quite a culture shock.
When I first came, culture shock, but as I said, I don't know why I had this love and desire for Vietnamese people. So on one sense, sure, culture shock, but on the other side, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from the moment I got here. Yeah.
Well, I certainly found that. And as you know, I've been here about 3.5 years, and it gets better all the time. How did you make the transition from NGO, non-profit making presumably, through to real business and the need and desire to make a profit?
Sure. So my insight into Vietnamese people being hardworking, creative, and intelligent remained, but I saw some real challenges in the traditional style of management, and especially the traditional style of management, and I didn't see that younger people were given the opportunity, both because of that management style and secondly some other cultural issues. So I had a real passion to see how I could develop leaders. Right. So I began to I did further study and research and personal development, and So that's where I moved into then leadership development, training and coaching. And then after that I worked primarily in CEO coaching. So for about 5 years I focused almost entirely on CEO coaching.
And how receptive were presumably Vietnamese CEOs to the thought that you wanted to introduce management practices, disciplines, corporate governance, presumably compliance, and all those interesting things to what quite often would be a family business?
Sure, I think many of them, so some travelled, some Vietnamese travelled, and of course then we had cable TV and they saw the window to the world. So some people could see opportunity, and some people could see, hey, and there was a greater number of foreigners coming into Vietnam, so some people had a desire to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by learning Vietnamese language and trying to communicate in a way that was not, you should do this or you should do that, but helping them to grow their business, they opened up to it. And then when they experienced coaching especially, they loved it. And then therefore word of mouth was how I promoted that part of my business. Because I think being a leader in Asia is a very lonely experience, because you have to be right and you have to know everything, and not traditionally, and so that leads to needing to look like you know everything when you don't. Mm-hmm. And you're not allowed to fail, so it was difficult to learn from failure because you weren't supposed to have failure. So all of those things, I think, limited and made for a very lonely life. So when they actually had someone that they could share their deepest troubles with, and you, as a coach, you create that environment for them to open, to share their challenges and problems and difficulties, and they found great benefit in just reflecting back. You say you want this and you want that, but I see you doing this and this, so aligning what they want with how they're doing. And I think I was maybe the first person they'd ever been able to actually open up.
Yeah.
And the growth from that was the product.
Given that you can speak Vietnamese, is there anything you'd like to say to part of our audience that will be Vietnamese and prove the prowess of your language?
The prowess of my language. Chỉ có nói là người Việt là rất là giỏi, rất là thông minh và khích lệ người để nghe có kinh nghiệm cho người nước ngoài có thể là phù hợp. Một số là phù hợp, một số là không. Mà nghe và lấy các điều là tốt và bỏ các điều là không tốt. That's all.
I've always found it fascinating watching Vietnamese people when a foreigner actually speaks to them in Vietnamese that they can understand.
My Vietnamese is not perfect, my pronunciation is not great, but I can listen really well.
You've dealt a lot in your career with CEOs, and you've learned a lot from them because they would have learned a lot from you. Do you have any major points of advice you would give to up-and-coming CEOs?
To be passionate about developing people. I think our greatest resource is people, and if you develop them, see, you got people who will come and work for you because they want money, they need money, we all need money. But if they just working for you because they need money, then they do what they need to do to get their salary and that's it. But if you are the kind of person that they want to follow, and you're communicating a vision of where you'd like to go, and those things, people go, hey, I feel like I can trust him, and I want to go where he's taking me. And people will walk over cut glass to follow someone like that. So for me, I say everything rises and falls on leadership. So be the person that you would want to follow,
Right.
and communicate a vision of where you want to go and be passionate about developing people to go with you. I know that sounds really basic, but it's powerful.
One of the interesting things I've always found about Vietnamese people in the workplace is their willingness and their want to learn. They sort of seek education all the time. Have you found that?
Sure, I think there's two parts to that. On one hand, I think the younger generation now, there's a lot of people who really want to be well off. They want what they might see on TV or so on, and so they're passionate to learn and to grow. There was a generation, I think it's fading out now, who they want the certificate, not necessarily the learning.
Right.
But for sure, the younger people are passionate about learning and growing, and that's exciting.
Yes, I mean it can only benefit business and the people at large. Is there any advice you would offer to the leaders in the community as to how they can help and encourage young people?
Again, I think it's about communicating what you want clearly. Communicating with people a clear vision, and be the kind of person that is trustworthy, that they want to follow. I know I'm sort of saying the same thing, but it is so powerful when you see a leader who embodies the message in the way they live their life, and you can trust them, and therefore you want to be with them, you want to learn from them, you want to go where they're going. And when you are that person and you communicate with clarity and passion, people will follow. And that is the first step to making it all happen, I think.
You're clearly passionate about that, and much to be admired. So what are you doing these days, and what's happening in your...
So I went to work for a publishing company, and I spent a bit over a year there, and that was a fascinating experience, and again gave me insights to how some Vietnamese businesses run, and it also opened me up to experience the whole media business. And our company was representative of the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity, so awards and learning for the advertising industry. So just being involved in that industry and being involved with the Cannes Lions really opened my eyes to the advertising world, the media world. And so as a springboard from that, I'm now working on a few projects, one of which is with FB&C, and I'm just loving it. I'm enjoying consulting. I'm enjoying still some leadership development and coaching, and doing some business development as well. I kind of taking my experience from the past and using it in some unique and creative ways. And I've got a few projects that will be revealing soon. But I'm as passionate and excited about living and working in Vietnam as ever.
And so what pearls of wisdom would you pass on to the government that they might help build a sustainable growth for over the next generation or two?
I think the greatest thing that they could do is to create opportunities for people. So making it easier for people to do business, making that whole process and the transactions and the tax system and everything to support the growth of business. And if they were able to do that to make doing business easier, and I think they are. You know, I heard recently we're going to get rid of the red chop. I don't know, I think that's exciting. There's a few initiatives that the government are currently doing that I think is actually quite exciting. Continue moving those things along. Certainly in terms of banking and finance, and banking is not my strong point, but certainly there's a lack of capital in the market right now, and businesses need capital to develop their business. So since that's not my expertise, I just say whatever it is, you see if we can find ways to get capital into the right people's hands.
Yeah, yeah. And what about Bruce? Bruce in the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, since I moved into the media space and marketing, and I'm looking to do more in terms of television and digital marketing, and combining that whole learning, coaching and management development and media sort of into a unique package of things. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
It is.
And anything else you'd like to add to your illustrious sojourn in Vietnam?
Just be passionate about what you do. To find out what it is that you really want to do. That's what I'd love to communicate with young people. Find out what it is you want to do, and then spend time learning and growing, and never stop, and be passionate about it, and give it all you've got. Why be half-hearted about whatever it is you're doing? That's what I think. You've got to just give it everything.
Well, I think one of the problems, and that you'll tell me if I'm right or wrong, please do, is that in terms of education and career development, doesn't seem to be much of a bridge between getting your university degree and helping you find something in an industry, in a trade, in a profession that you can feel passionate about. Because it seems to me that a lot of people are, as you said earlier, sort of driven by money and the need to get some now, as opposed to I can invest my time and make some real money later, but enjoy doing that. Is that something you find?
Sure. So I think it's true all around the world that the universities or schools don't always equip people to work. But it's more true here. So certainly aligning schooling and university and training trades and whatever it is with people at what people can actually do in the workplace would be certainly helpful. But I don't think the education system around the world will look like it does when you or when we were growing up. Be self-motivated to learn. Learn through a variety. I mean, there's so much opportunity to learn through books, through videos. If you've got a smartphone you can buy for $100, the world is at your fingers. So if you're passionate about learning, don't worry about the educational institution. I mean, don't disregard it. It is important. It's good discipline, but you don't need that to be your only source for learning.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bruce. Really, really interesting talking to you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And thank you to our audience for watching this interview with Bruce, who's given us an insight into his life and career here in Vietnam, which he clearly feels passionate about and enjoys. And I do hope you'll watch the next program we have in CEO Insights. And this is Leon Shears saying thank you, and thank you for watching us.